Here we go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Leadership Summit. We are glad that you could join us on this day of professional learning meant to take family, school, community partnership to the next level. My name is Tom Capretta, and I'll be your session's moderator. So if you have any questions, technical issues, please let me know. This is session number 2, which is engaging families in the post-secondary transition process. So hopefully you're in the right place. To ensure you get the most out of today, we're asking that participants keep cameras and microphones off. If you have questions, use the chat, and I will pass those along to them. Feel free to join in the conversation on Twitter by using the hashtag #ChartNewTerritories. But without any further ado, I want to introduce our 2 speakers really quick. With us today, we have Amy Szymanski and Dr. Sarah Westerfield. Amy has over 25 years of experience in the field of education, primarily in the field of special education. Ms. Szymanski holds a level of expertise in the areas of secondary transition for students with disabilities and dropout prevention, and has presented on the topic at local, state, and national levels. Ms. Szymanski currently works as the statewide secondary transition and workforce development consultant at the State Support Team Region 1. Here she serves as the lead in multiple projects for the Ohio Department of Education, Office of Exceptional Children.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now between sections.
Well, that's good. Just let me know.
Yeah.
Dr. Sarah Westerfield Brooks is the Ohio Transition Support OTSP project coordinator at the Ohio Department of Education in the Office of Exceptional Children. OTSP is a collaborative effort between the Ohio Department of Education and opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities to increase the availability of vocational rehabilitation services for students with disabilities starting at age 14. Sarah has a PhD in special education from the University of Pittsburgh and has a range of experience from early intervention through college transition for individuals with differences. She specializes in family professional partnerships and collaboration between teams in special education. I'm going to turn it over to them so that we can get the most out today. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Tom, for that wonderful introduction. I know Amy had already typed in the chat that we would really love to know a little bit about you. So if you can drop your name and your agency that you work for in the chat, that would be great. We just really would love to know who's here with us today. And today we want to focus on the question, how do we support and enhance the efforts of our state, regional, and local agency personnel to engage families of secondary transition age youth with disabilities? So our goal really after this presentation is that the participants here will be able to understand the importance of engaging families of secondary transition age youth with disabilities, that you'll be able to identify strategies and resources to establish families as partners in the secondary transition planning process, and also to help identify future learning opportunities for family engagement that are available to you. So we can go to the next slide, Tom. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. And I see a whole host of people here responding in the chat. Thank you so much for that. And a really diverse group from parent mentors to behavior specialists, state support team partners. So really happy that you're all here. I'm going to drop the Menti link into the chat. You can also see it here on the slide, or you can actually even use your phone to zip the URL code there. So we're going to ask you to join us on a Menti. And Tom, I'm going to just steal this screen from you for a minute, if you don't mind, and take you to the Menti itself. Let me start to share here. Back it up just a little bit. Let me stop it one more time, and I'm going to back it up. We know that families of students with disabilities are often faced with emotional, social, physical, and economic demands. And we just want to kind of draw your attention to some of the research around that so that we can gain a better understanding of exactly what types of challenges our students and our families may be experiencing. So let me I've got it all ready to go. Should be ready to share. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you've been able to jump in. Sharing my screen. Yeah, there's always that little bit when you're not quite sure that you're going to be able to do this. So hang with me, team. I'm almost there. I've got the thing shared. Oh, man. Let me exit one more time. Share my screen this way. Well, this will just build the suspense for what you all need to be doing here with the first. There we go. Sorry. Yeah, Tom's probably like, why did you even try to do this? Because you know you're terrible at it. Okay, so here we go. Hopefully everyone is in and ready to go. If you want to just drop in the chat, if anyone's having any problems, we can make sure you get in there and answer. Sarah, do you see any issues in the chat?
No.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to give you 2 questions to think about before we get into an actual game. So the first is, families caring for children with disabilities are more likely to have.
Some people are saying the code isn't working, Amy. Sorry.
The code isn't working. 14343724. Did I drop the wrong one in?
The code says 372. Okay, so there's a 4 at the end.
It must have not cut.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Can you try again? There, we'll get everybody. Good morning on a Friday morning, trying to get the technology to work. Hopefully
that seems to be working.
Yay! Hooray! Thank you for your patience. I try really hard to do these things, and then I usually flop at first. So once we get in here, we're going to all have a great time. There we go. Woo, 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 woo. Okay. Keep answering. Families caring for children with disabilities are more likely to have which of these? Less self-reported annual family income, greater personal financial strife, less employment security, elevated levels of emotional stress, greater use of health services by their children, or all of these. Give it another second. I think this one's probably an easy one, but because it's a Friday morning, I want to start us off to all feel positive. Alrighty. So let's see, 10 responses, and that is the correct answer. So thank you so very much. Oh, we're still adding. There we go. Perfecto. Good. We're going to go on to the next question. 28% of families caring for children with disabilities spend blank or more hours per week providing or coordinating health care for their child. 11 hours, 7 hours, or 3 hours. What do we think? 11 or more hours. Give you guys another chance to answer. Looks like the prevailing response is 11 hours. Some are saying 7. Give it another second. And the correct answer is 11 hours. So more than a quarter of our families are spending 11 or more hours per week providing or coordinating health care for their child. So I think as we look through these statistics, it's going to start to build the case, which I know many of you already know, but of why there may be some challenges with engaging in some of the activities that we may be putting on at our respective agencies, or other activities that we're asking families to join. Not that they don't want to be involved, but we may have some competing priorities. Now we're going to start a game. Let's see how this one works. We got all kinds of folks in here, and if you haven't had a chance to join yet, please do so. Oh, yeah, here we go. Who's the 8-ball? I love to see who we're going to have join us. Oh, good. Thank you. I'm so glad the hamburger's in. That makes me feel much better now. Okay, we're going to start the countdown. The faster you respond, the better. And we have 5 questions. Oh, yeah, see, Strawberry, get yourself right in there. All right, here we go. Starting the countdown. Answer fast to get more points. How likely are siblings of individuals with disabilities to experience behavior problems in all settings? Not as likely, at least 1.5 times more likely, or always likely? What do we think? You can vote now. What did we come up with? Okay, so a large chunk. 8 is the correct answer. At least 1.5 times more likely. So not only are our families considering working directly with their child who has a disability, but there may be some additional impact on other family members that they're also managing. Let's see where that puts all of us in terms of our leaderboard. Ooh, we've got some names now. So now this is when it starts to get really personal, right? I don't know who the hustler is, but let's see. Heather appears to be leading with the umbrella, very closely followed by Aaron, the hamburger. And actually, it's a cheeseburger. Sorry that I said no cheese. Let's go on to our next question. Answer quickly to get more points. Families caring for a child with a disability earn on an average up to how much less than families not caring for a child with a disability? $4,500, $18,250, or $22,500. Let's see what we find. Neck and neck. Alrighty, so $22,500 less annually for individuals who have a child with a disability. That also kind of factors into, we're asking you to drive places, right? We're asking you to think about getting childcare while you attend meetings. Are these really things that people, that families can afford, right? Kind of just speaks to why we want to make sure we're really cognizant of that when we're planning. It's not just time, but also financial resources. Check out our leaderboard. Dun, 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 dun. Heather, have you been able to hang in there? Ooh, Patty. Patty is, here we go. Frosty. Frosty is killing it. Let's see what's next. Aaron, I have confidence that you are going to get up there again. Let's see what happens next. Answer fast to get more points. The percent of families who have to cut work hours to care for children with disabilities, 26%, 15%, or 45% who have to change their work hours, which of course is going to impact finances, right? All right, so 26% of our families have to cut their work hours. So in addition to those medical bills that may be piling up, we're reducing work hours, reducing amount of finances that are coming in. Leaderboard, I'm feeling comfortable. I'm feeling good here. Ooh, okay, Earthman making a huge jump here. Let's see what happens next. Aaron, you can do this. I'm feeling comfortable and confident. Which of these employment problems do many families of children with disabilities experience? Time stress, employment proximity, job lock, meaning we don't have a lot of flexibility in changing our job, fatigue, or all of these? I think that was kind of a gimme, but you know what? Let's see how quickly. See, speed is also part of this. So we see that families are experiencing all of these, which again are going to impact so many different areas of their engagement. Let's go check it out, see where we are. Who was the fastest? Oh, Earthman, maybe you had to take a call. It's Aaron bumping up there. The Hustlers suddenly into third place. Frosty and Sharon are neck and neck. Let's see what happens next. Quickly. This is our last question, so good luck. Make it count. Percent of families of children with disabilities who experience difficulty paying medical bills. 29%, 52%, or 88%. See what we've got. Okay, so 52, so a little more than half of the families of our children with disabilities are experiencing difficulty paying medical bills. I don't think that is probably coming as a surprise either, because we know that we've just seen some of the other factors that are going to be impacting in terms of job, work. hours and such. So let's see, it is the final leaderboard. Who do we have taking the lead? Who can have bragging rights for the rest of this hour? Frosty, you are the winner. If you'd like to share who you are, Frosty, I mean, you can take some accolades from your peers. You don't have to. Tom, I'll turn it back over to you so we can keep moving. Thank you for involving us in this little exercise. Hopefully what it was able to do is give you, again, just some insight into the types of demands that our families may have as they're working with us in their activities. Oh, Melissa Salaza was Frosty. She's learning from the best. There we go. Melissa is one of our Kerr Technical Planning District consultants, and so happy to see that you are the leader there. Okay, so we've got the statistics, right, that show kind of how families are impacted. What we want to do next is show a little bit more research as to why it's important, not just to focus on families, but to dig into families of secondary transition age with youth with disabilities. And I think there's a natural tendency to say, oh my gosh, these kids are getting older. They need to start to establish their own independence. We need, as families, we need to have the family start backing off, stop, being those helicopter parents, whatever the case may be. But in reality, we need those families more than ever. The kids are starting to move on to some pretty uncharted territories, and we want to make sure that we have the families involved and to make sure that we recognize how to address all of the different barriers that we've seen that could potentially be impacting them. So I'm just going to go through a few of the factors, and I don't want to read research to you directly, but I do just want to touch base on a couple of areas that have been shown to make an impact on students' successful post-school outcomes. The first would be thinking about the correlation between family involvement and improved post-school employment outcomes. So the more often we're able to engage families in the work that we do, the more likely we're going to see those students have improved post-school employment outcomes. Involvement means keeping the families and the guardians active and knowledgeable in all that we do. So the decision-making aspect, providing support, attending meetings, and advocating for their children. We know that research supports that this work is going to lead to successful post-school employment. We also know that family engagement is positively correlated with student achievement. So the more we're able to engage our families, the more likely those students are going to be successful within school, which is then going to lead to improved outcomes in employment and in education. And when we talk about what expectations really are and what that means to have high expectations, we're talking about families who are really intentionally able to state that we expect that our children are going to be involved in competitive integrated employment after they graduate. We expect that our children are going to be involved in post-secondary education after they graduate. So that very conscious, very intentional and explicit understanding and expectation is going to really move the needle for our students. Interestingly enough, too, we also have research that supports attendance at IEP meetings. So again, we start to see sort of families maybe stop attending as often the IEP meetings as the students get older. We know we definitely want to continue to have the students directing those IEPs, right? The self-directed IEP is so important so that they're starting to take ownership for those IEP meetings. But having the parents there specifically in 11th and 12th grade has been shown to increase the likelihood of students being successful in their post-school employment. So, just really important that we ensure that even at the end of their school career, that the families are still coming to those IEP meetings. And then finally, two other pieces I want to mention is just that we know that families aren't going to be able to do it alone, right? In terms of supporting their families or supporting their children, we have to build that community support as well around the families and help them help the children identify networks to belong to, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, but successful post-school outcomes are really based on support networks such as peer support networks, looking at health support networks, and then looking at networks that are going to help those students identify possible jobs, work-based learning experiences and such. So just really helping families connect with networks is going to be leading directly to additional post-school employment and education opportunities. So Sarah, I'm going to let you go ahead and lead a chat about kind of how we are currently looking at our own parent engagement, family engagement strategies, and think about how those can start to impact our families.
So now what we want you guys to do is really reflect on the things that we've just discussed. So think about a situation in which you've seen family involvement contribute to post-school success for youth with disabilities. Then, think about how the family was involved and what were those strategies that you used to engage with the family. And if you guys could just drop a strategy or two in the chat, we would love to see current practices that others are using and how you guys, are currently engaging with families.
And don't be shy. It doesn't have to be a super duper amount of words. Just drop a few things in and we'll kind of pull from there. I know that there are so many incredible things that are currently happening out in the field, and we want to capture those and then continue thinking about how we can do even better. So Tara is stating that she has family nights and open transition nights. Wonderful. Thank you, Tara. Anyone else want to share a few things that they're doing? Also thinking about those in the context of those statistics that we shared and then the research that we shared. So, right, how are we aligning the work that we're doing to keep in mind what the families are considering, making yourself available for questions or concerns outside of the school day, right? We already saw that there's that job lock, or I'm sorry, not the job lock, the reduction in the work hours, right? So we know that families are already cutting out of work a lot. So how can we kind of accommodate their schedule? That's awesome. One-on-one conferences so that we get specific to those needs and the individual needs of the family, not just the student, right? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Look at you.
I like what Amy put there, asking families about their social networks for employment opportunities, because I think something that we often don't think about is how we get jobs, right? A lot of times that's through networking and through people that we know. And a lot of times individuals with disabilities might not have that same social network. So really relying on the families in that aspect and people that they can connect with.
Excellent. And Jan, I stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the critical factors that we have to have as personnel working with families and how important it is to have those authentic and necessary conversations and be good listeners. So thanks for mentioning that. Mm-hmm. Kathy, it's good to see you here. Yes, connecting. The connections that we can provide are so important. And Alex mentioned, again, connections. And the CCMEP, for those of you who are not familiar, is our comprehensive case management employment program through the Department of Job and Family Services, an excellent resource if you are not familiar to get your families linked with that. Right. And I think, go ahead, Sarah, sorry.
No. I was just going to say too, and Aaron had put here the flexibility with virtual connections and using technology, which is obviously been really key for us the last year and a half with the pandemic. So we've had to make a lot of adjustments and be really creative in how we can help families.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. Good to see you too. And I did want to just mention one other thing about the virtual aspect is I think we found that even though virtual seems to be sometimes less personal, it does allow for so much more flexibility. When we get into some of the resources that we have available, we do have some pretty cool initiatives and products that some of our Innovative Strategies grants teams developed that incorporate that virtual aspect that they have said has just been a game changer in the work that they're doing. So stay tuned for that piece too. Is there anything else that we want to touch base on? Thanks, guys. So Sarah, I'll let you get away from there.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, as you can see, we have a great foundation here. It sounds like everyone's doing a lot to support families. But we think even with this foundation as a state that, we could do even better. And we also think that our families deserve for us to give them the best that we have. So we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Couldn't agree more. I'm really, really excited with, the commitment that we have seen from all of our partner state agencies in doing better around family engagement. Sarah and I currently sit on the statewide family engagement, or I shouldn't say family engagement, that's our focus, but our statewide secondary transition team. And that is coordinated through the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, which is now called the NTACT-C, the NTACT Collaborative. Each year, the NTACT group brings together statewide teams from across the country to develop secondary transition plans. And first of all, we've had just a great partnership with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, Department of Developmental Disabilities, the Statewide Family Engagement Center. Tom serves on our team as well. We've had support from Job and Family Services, Department of Health, just many, many state agencies. At this point, we've got about 6 on our core team, and then just about every other state agency you can imagine involved in some of the other work that we're going to share. But the commitment that's there to look really closely at the current policies and practices that we have and do better. We did a huge scan of all of our transition policies a couple years ago as the state secondary transition team with NTACT helping us. And we realized that we just did not have enough policy and practice really focusing intentionally on families and specifically on families of secondary transition age youth. We know families already have some barriers, and we know that we've got research that supports that including families during that critical time of 14 through 22 is going to help us move the needle on post-school outcomes. So we were like, we got to do something. And we got together and we worked really hard, and we looked at all kinds of data and research and all this kind of stuff. And we came up with these critical topics that we said, you know what, we want our state, regional, and local professionals to have these particular critical topics addressed, understood, to develop a common message around from the state and all the way down, so that through the educational cascade of the child, so that we're on the same page and that we're really putting a concerted effort toward doing better around, number one, transition planning, and then specifically around family engagement. So you'll see that we have developed, again, some common messages and some questions that we think about, and then we're going to share those first, and then we're going to talk a little bit about a learning experience opportunity that you have around these. So I'll get started. I'll talk about the first 3, and then Sarah will jump in and talk to you a little bit about the last 3. The first that we, as a team, have been working on with the brilliant leadership and guidance from Dr. Barbara Boone and her team at the Statewide Family Engagement Center around universal design for family engagement. So really thinking about what are we using to fully engage our families. Are our communication methods and materials provided in multiple and varied ways? You guys showed some of those examples right within your in the chat box, so thank you for that. Thinking about flexibility with access to resources and supports and events in a manner that's really going to be responsive to the individual and family needs. And then, of course, representing family demographics in all that we do, from our materials that we send out to our staffing structures to our building decor, just ensuring that we are representative of the individuals, the families that we serve in all that we do is so vitally important. And really thinking about, how do we get that information about what families needs? I think somebody had mentioned the one-on-one conversations and such. Surveying families and getting that information is so vital to being able to really best meet their needs. And then the next piece, I think it's like, well, yeah, obviously we want to make sure that we're valuing families, but what does that look like? How do we really truly show that we are valuing families? And that is by ensuring that those families are equitable contributors and partners in the plans that we are developing for their child for working, living, and learning after they graduate, right? And in really making sure that we're listening to their perspectives. They are the first and most knowledgeable group related to their own child, right? We need to really value those perspectives and listen, as Jan said, when we're talking with them. Another area that we really think is important is to be thinking about the evolution of disability, right? So what is that historical evolution of disability? You know, we started how many years ago, and not really that many years ago, when individuals with disabilities weren't allowed to even access school, right? They weren't allowed to come into our community organizations and such. So how is the transition, how's the evolution impacted how families really view working, living, and learning? If you have families of students who are youth who, you know, maybe had older brothers and sisters back in the time when there was a little more segregation, how does that impact perhaps how they see some of these quote unquote maybe new ideas that we're coming up with now to have more inclusion, to have competitive integrated employment? What's the impact? And not only what is that impact, but then how do we respect that impact and work with the families to understand where we are in the process based on, you know, the history that we've experienced over time. So I think those are some of the key areas that we really want to make sure that we're addressing with our families. Sarah, if you want to go on to the next ones, I think we've got a lot more to share.
Sure. So the next common message is for implicit bias. And so you might ask yourself, what is implicit bias? I know we talk about it a lot, we hear about it a lot, but it really is defined, implicit or unconscious bias is defined as the process of associating stereotypes or attitudes toward categories of people without our conscious awareness. So we do have a natural tendency to sort people into groups based on characteristics. So those might be age, gender, race, disability, and so on. And these are really shaped by our own personal experiences, by our families, our friends, and like maybe how we grew up, media, movies, etc. So these biases, they start at an early age and they continue throughout our lifetime. So what we really need to do as professionals are recognize and address our own personal biases related to youth with disabilities, related to youth with disabilities working, pursuing education, living independently, possibly employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities is something that you need more exposure to. Perhaps it's doing some investigating on how accommodations can be made for independent living with support or being creative in workplace accommodations. So these are all areas that we need to be aware of. We must also recognize and address our own personal biases related to families' levels of expectations for their child and preparation and involvement in their child's future planning. So different families are going to have different levels of understanding and involvement in their child's transition planning, and that's okay. We need to meet families where they are and help them to move toward future goals and help them to have high expectations. And, you know, we also have to acknowledge and value families' past experiences related to transition services. So this really could be a new journey for some families, maybe completely new, can be really scary. Others might have had difficult experiences with educators or providers that might make it difficult to trust others. And we need to take all of these things into consideration and, again, help families have high expectations for their child and then support them along their journey to reach these goals. So the next message is for cultural and linguistic diversity. And families' cultural and linguistic backgrounds will impact their views on work, on education, and independent living. And we all have our own culture. So even siblings that were raised in the same home by the same parents have different ways that they are going to interpret the world. And we need to think about how we can approach transition activities with respect to these cultural and linguistic differences and backgrounds. And with that being said, it's important that we have the knowledge and understanding of our own personal culture that will help us to understand the importance of someone else's culture when we are helping families to transition, helping them to help their child transition to adulthood. And last, but certainly not least, is the common message for authentic and necessary conversations. So this includes having open and respectful discussions relevant to a youth plan for working, pursuing education, and living independently. And things that we need to provide are varied and reliable evidence to support recommendations for a youth plan for working, pursuing education, and living independently. We need to approach conversations in a purposeful way and provide the opportunity for families to present evidence, gather input, discuss concerns, and we need to do this in an objective manner. And we also need to communicate clearly. So we need to listen with an open mind, without judgment, use our active listening skills, build trust, and help positively influence individuals and their families' vision for their loved one's future. And we can head to the next slide.
Awesome. And before we jump into the resources, I did see a comment that Amy had placed into the chat box, and it was regarding how our biases show up when we tell students that their post-school dreams are unrealistic. And Tom had responded, yes, and agree, Tom. The family, that's why the families and other supports, as he says, are so critical when planning for the future. That's why early planning is so critical. And it's a matter of saying, unrealistic is not the term we want to use. It's more of what's the right fit, right? Let's look at what the student's current, preferences and interests and needs and strengths are, and then find the match. What supports do they need to be successful? What, current circumstances can be considered and leveraged to make a fit work. So I think it's interesting. I get a lot of questions, and I'm sure, Sarah, you do too. In fact, I know you do because we're always copied on them. But where they'll say, we know this is never going to work for the child, or we know the family is never going to be able to, to support this, and we don't know. Right. We just don't know. I think we need to flip that into what can we do to help identify the services and supports that the students and family need to find the fit that's going to be most successful for that child. And I think by engaging in those critical topics and really setting an intentional focus on those messages that we just shared, we're going to be able to make an impact. We are, again, you're going to hear it like a broken record. We're doing a great job. We can do better. We always can do better, and our families and students, like Sarah said, deserve that. So there's a couple of, we've got the critical topics, and we'll talk about how we're going to operationalize that in some training in a minute. But here's some resources that we think that you can utilize to really help support those critical topics as well. And the first, I'm going to drop in the chat the links, but the first is the secondary transition modules. I'm sure any of you that have heard me speak before know that this is something that I am a very strong proponent for. It's a group of modules, 5, in fact, that were developed by the Office for Exceptional Children. Our very own Kathy Reese, who's on the call with us, was an integral member of this group that built the secondary transition modules. They are built around the Transition Taxonomy 2.0, and that is student-focused planning, student development, interagency collaboration, program structures, and then also a whole section around family engagement. So it's about an hour-long module that you can access around family engagement. I'm going to put the links in the chat right now. If you have seen or the module, obviously, Kathy, I know you have. I know some of you on the call have definitely listened as well. Would love to know kind of what your thoughts are if you want to drop those in the chat. There is one way to access through our learning management system through the department if you have a state educator Ohio license, and you can actually earn contact hours for all of the different modules. But again, the family engagement one is the one I'm kind of focusing on here. Earn a contact hour for that, or there's an alternate access. I dropped both of those in the link, or I'm sorry, in the chat. And the alternate access just allows you to get in there and watch the modules without needing to have an educator license. So all of the providers and parent mentors and such who may not have those licenses can go in and view the modules. We've got Marbella from the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities interviewed in the family engagement module to talk a little bit about cultural and linguistic diversity. I think it's a great resource, as well as, and we've got additional resources linked into each of the modules, so those can be really, really helpful as well. The second resource that I do want to share with you, and I kind of alluded to it earlier on, is our Innovative Strategies Live Binder. Thank you, Sarah, for dropping that in there. Our Innovative Strategies Live Binder is a collection of resources that cohorts of grantees who received our Innovative Strategies grant over the past 4 or 5 years have developed that you can use as to replicate throughout the state. So we've organized these products by the taxonomy as well. So the same topics that I just shared with the modules. So there's a whole section devoted on the Live Binder to family engagement products and things that our local school districts and their partners have developed to engage families. I'm still uploading the most recent cohort into the Live Binder, but I will tell you that there's some incredible surveys that have been transferred into a variety of different languages. We've got schools that have gone ahead and made different IEP and ETR forms in a variety of languages to help better engage families. Just some really, really cool resources. So please, please, please check out the Live Binder. And again, if you really want to focus in on the family engagement, that would be awesome. Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you for the other resources.
Yeah, so next is the NTAC Collaborative Resources on Family Engagement. And NTAC, the collaborative, you might remember by its previous name, just NTAC. They have plenty of research-based materials for family engagement. And if you haven't been on their page for a while, you're going to want to set up a free account and access some of the materials and to sign up for their listserv. Not everyone who had an account prior through just NTAC was switched over. So that's something you might want to check into. And I did just drop the link in the chat as well. Next is, let me just grab this link here for you.
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Yep.
Next is Ocali. So the link that Amy just dropped in the chat will take you to their Take 5, and that's a 5-minute overview of the student support and family engagement predictors for success. And it also includes additional resources as well. So that's another one you'll want to add to your list of things to check out. And then finally, we have the Guidepost for Success 2.0. So we'll drop that link in the chat here as well. And that is a framework for successful youth transition to adulthood. And Guidepost 5 specifically addresses what families need to do or what they need to know and what educators, professionals, and service providers can do to support families during the transition process. So that link is in the chat as well.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. We can go on to the next slide, Tom. I think all of those resources, again, maybe you've seen some of them before, but I don't know about if you're like me, but a lot of times I just have to go back and check things out again, especially in, different contexts, different day. I have different needs. So, revisit those resources. I think they're going to give you a lot of great information. Kathy, there is a question, Tom, I should say, about whether the PowerPoint is available, and I believe it will be. So we will make sure that it is so that you can have access to those links. Oh, thank you, Melissa, for putting the guidepost in if the link didn't go through all the way. Thank you. All righty. So as I mentioned, this state, all of our state agencies are committed to doing better. So committed, in fact, that we have developed an entire workbook and learning experience around those critical topics that we shared with you. This past May, we had about 70 regional and state cross-agency members participate in a 6-session learning experience about each of the topics. It was pretty remarkable. We had everyone from OOD and, like I said, all those other agencies that I mentioned. In fact, the workbook itself was signed by each agency's deputy director or director. We've got Paolo De Maria's signature involved as well. It's a commitment to say that we know how important family engagement is and how much we are supporting the common messages and the critical topic knowledge that we have here. So in about a week, and probably actually next week immediately, you're going to see a release of the first document here on the page, which is called It Starts With Families. And It Starts With Families is a guide that we put together through the Ohio Employment First Task Force that summarizes all of the research and statistics around family engagement. So that little Mentimeter that we did earlier on, and I gave you, 6 or 7 different statistics. This guide is chock full of many, many more statistics and research that you can utilize just to kind of build the case. Hopefully at this point you don't need to build the case anymore. I think we've done that for you. But at any rate, there's a lot of great research in there. And then there's also a call to action, and that call to action is to commit with us to do more and to do better for our families and to engage families in a method that follows those critical topics. So you will see a link, and we're going to put that in the chat box right now, to an email address. If you are interested in learning more about the critical topics, if you are interested in joining a cross-agency training around the establishing families, email that box. Let us know. We're looking for early adopters. We've already trained our regional folks on how to provide training on these materials, and we want to start getting it out to others at the local levels. We think that it's a pretty cool package and want to make sure that we can get it out to all of you. So send us an email. Look for the It Starts With Families release to get some additional information to really help us build that case. And we hope that sometime in the spring, which is when we kind of anticipate some of our training is going to get started, that we'll be able to meet with all of you and really start to embrace family engagement in the way it was meant to be. So let's see. I see a question. Is this the training we provide to individuals outside of Ohio? Well, wow. I don't know. We're just at the very beginning stages of this. I would love to take this on the road to all over the place eventually. I think we're going to go in baby steps. In fact, I think our team has set a goal of trying to get 4 local trainings completed by the end of this school year. So by June of 2022, a lot of work to get a lot of the cross-agency, training together. But I think it's really, really cool. The training that we did and the organization that we put into this workbook was done by a team from across agencies, which I think is remarkable. Again, just showing the commitment. Sarah, do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, I just wanted to make sure to let you guys know that, now's the time to ask questions. If you have any questions or feedback for us, And we would just love to hear what you guys are thinking, and would really love for you guys to join us on this, initiative that we have.
While we're waiting for a few questions to roll in, I'd also like to take a shot at the individuals outside of Ohio question. The Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center was a supporter of the establishing families as partners and development of critical topics and such, and continues to work with this. And we would, if it is something valuable to the field, as I'm sensing that it is, would definitely be interested in working with Amy and the rest of our team here to see if that is something that we would be able to partner on to provide to a broader audience in the future. So if it's something you want and you're not from Ohio, you're not in one of our little regions here that we talk about, feel free to keep hitting us up about it, and that'll push us in the right direction to make that happen for you.
Excellent. Right. Thanks, Tom. And yeah, it is that kind of supply or the demand, right? If the demand is there, we'll make it happen. This has been a labor of love, and we are just so passionate about moving the work forward. So happy to do whatever we can. Kathy, thank you. It is very exciting, and we're excited to get it out to others. Any other questions or comments? And I'm going to just do the reverse back shout out to Tom. Tom has been such a great supporter, as well as the Family Engagement Center, in all of this. Tom's working on leading our community of practice right now. We want to make sure that we're supporting all of the individuals who have been part of a learning session already, so that they feel, they are able to master the content, and then also master, the next steps in moving this out to others. And we hope to continue that same community of practice model as well. So as more people become familiar with the topics and start to share it out with others, we'll join an even bigger community of practice that can continue to support the work. All right, I think that is our very last slide. So thank you very much. Tom, thanks for inviting us to be here and to share our work. Thanks to all of you for joining us and to learn about the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you guys, Amy and Sarah, for being here today. I would appreciate, I encourage you all in the chat to give a thanks. If you do have questions, we have a couple more minutes, so keep putting those in there. But in the meantime, give them a thanks. There's going to be a 15-minute break. The next session doesn't start till 11:30. Really excited for the next sessions. They're all school practitioners telling their story about implementing family engagement practice. So it'll be a little slightly different, just a little more applied. I want to say just one thing. If this is the last session you're going to make it to live today, please take our summit survey that I'll drop in the chat. If you are going to sessions after this, please do not take the survey yet. You'll only take it once, but we want to make sure that we capture everyone's feedback on the event so we can continue to have a strong event that meets your needs. So I'm going to drop that in a chat. Remember to keep the conversation going on Twitter using the hashtag #ChartNewTerritories, and keep visiting ohiofamiliesengaged.osu.edu/summit to get into the other events. So continue to thank our great presenters. Ask any questions you have. I'm going to leave the room open just for a couple more minutes.
Sure. Sarah and I never finish early on anything, so
I know
we did it. I'm feeling quite successful today.
Right. So Amy asked if she could get a summary of the resources that they can use, and I know all of those resources are listed in the slides. If you access the slides that Tom posted in the chat, also the links to all of those resources we put in the chat as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and feel free to take these last couple minutes to jump into some of those resources. I know that we never have time to actually look at the resources that are available to us. And when we're in a conference, and I always leave conferences with just like, oh, my head is so full of everything. How am I ever going to have a chance to look at anything? So this might be a great time too, to just click on a few of those links and check out the resources that we provided.
Oh, and Amy, I totally misread your message. So yes, she had them. She was just thanking us. So sorry about that, Amy.
And continue to spread the word too. I think that's another ask that we would have. Clearly you joined this session because you care about family engagement, and you're here at the conference because you care about family engagement. But just continue to share with all of your colleagues so that we can get the message across.
Well, thank you all. And if you might just want to take a couple more minutes to refresh your coffee, get to the bathroom before our next sessions. Just really looking forward to the day. I'm going to be shutting the room down here if there's no more questions. So have a great day, and keep the learning going. Remember, chart new territories on Twitter. Take
Absolutely.
care.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the conference.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody.